throughout my years I've been training martial arts, I've had to deal with a lot of high impact from training, from competition, and from fighting. Um, what ended up happening was that as I started to fight at higher and higher levels and more often, I had to focus more of my training on resiliency in order to be able to handle what was happening. And luckily, I've been able over the years to gather quite a few different resiliency regimes that I've been using. And now I'm 50 years old and I can still play around with guys 20 years, 30 years younger than me quite frequently. So what I was thinking was that there might be some use for sports professionals in high impact sports to learn some sports resiliency training that integrates the body and mind in the same way as the training that I learned. See, the training that I learned to minimize damage has a lot of pretty flowery, interesting names. One of them's iron body. One's called the I Jin Jing in Chinese. It means the muscle tendon change. Cotton body, which I learned from drunken boxing. But they're all about being able to take damage and survive, essentially. Being a martial artist, being a warrior in the old days didn't just mean that you won the fight once, it meant you survived as well. And you could fight again next week. So these crazy exercises with these crazy names, how do they protect you and your body? Well, to cut through all of the esoteric and exotic other languages, essentially what they do, each one of them is designed slightly differently, but the muscle tendon change, for instance, is designed to use the power of your own muscularity to very gently tear the microfibers of the tissue in your body, your connective tissue, your tendons, and all of the things around your joints. And what happens is then if you tear tendons and ligaments, micro tear them, just like weightlifting, they have to grow stronger. And there's a few secret exercises that have been out there from the Shaolin monks for a long, long time that work directly on this, on tendon and connective tissue strength. What that means is that you end up with more resilient tendons. They don't break, they don't sprain, they don't get injured anywhere near as easily as a normal person's. Okay, um, and it's a very simple thing. If you micro tear a tendon, the body cannot make just that little bit of tendon stuff for that little tiny part of your body. Instead, it thickens all of the tendon and connective tissue. Now, as we know from modern training, when you exert physical force out of your body, the amount of power your tendons and connective tissue can actually transfer from your bones is how much power you can really output. So it doesn't matter if you can make 1,000 pounds of power with your bicep, if the tendons in here can only do 10, because then you can do 10. Otherwise, you tear the tendons off. That's what my teachers used to call things like sailor muscle. These little thin, wiry guys get really, really strong without bulking up. I thought that the other thing you might want to know about is how it protects you from actual impact. So there's different forms of this, but most of them have to do with taking care of an understanding of what the autonomic nervous system is doing when you're breathing, which is a mind exercise, not that hard to learn. The other one is understanding how to teach your body to deal with impact by way of timing, meaning that the moment that touching happens, right, very martial artsy, the moment touching happens, the moment that fist hits my body has to react in a very specific, trained way. And it's just like anything else. You train fast and slow twitch power so that you're able to have this instinctive reaction over time that will make your body react, explode, and in effect, bouncing force off you. I think it might be pretty useful. A couple of things that people have already asked me about this. What would the training look like? How long would it take? How long would it take to notice that it's good? And so I've been working on this. And the training would look like 10 to 15 minutes of a day, 2 sessions, right? There would be a physical component, there's a mental component. It would look like really, what does it look like? It looks like angry yoga, kind of like really angry yoga would be a good way to put it. Doesn't mean that you're going to be overworking anything else. Chinese martial artists like myself have been doing this stuff literally daily for decades, if not centuries. You go beyond my lifetime. I would say that 10 minutes twice a day, plus add the repetitions necessary. There's an old Chinese saying, 1,000 repetitions brings the full benefit. I figure you can do 1,000 repetitions of what I would show you in less than 20 days, probably more like 14, depending on a person's schedule. You should have some pretty serious outcomes from it, from what I've noticed in my life. You'll have less injuries over time. You'll heal faster. You'll have less recovery time. I notice that a lot now that I'm 50 because I still seem to be healing quicker than my friends, if you will. It's sort of a race to the bottom, but what can you do? So I think the last thing I want to tell you about is that there are ways for us to measure the outcomes of this. A lot of martial arts things are actually pretty subjective. That's why they're legends and not science. However, we've found ways to actually measure the outcomes of what this training is. It has to do with the thickness of tendons and connective tissue. It has to do with watching someone's injuries and as they occur, how quickly they heal and how often they occur. You'll notice that, for instance, in my students, I've really noticed knees and ankles. When I've started to teach this to them, their knees and their ankle injuries go way down because, well, our knees and our ankles are stupid, as everybody knows at high levels, right? The ankles are meant to deal with uneven ground. We live on pavement all day long, so our ankles are dumb. Anyway, your power output will always be increased because this stuff's built for martial arts, for war. You're supposed to be able to hurt somebody with your body because of the amount of force that you can drive from your muscularity through your tendons, through your structure into them. It sounds a lot like high impact sports to me, too. There's also a couple of ideas like muscle testing on injuries and things like that, and power output. There's a couple of subjective tests on iron body that I can pass on about how to actually take impact in training, not get hurt, and increase that impact over a little bit of time until it gets, well, legendary. That's what people say about it, right? Another one is what modern science would call like a wobble board type test. But the ancient art of Tai Chi from China has been doing something called push hands, which is wobble boards on steroids. It's the wobble board test, except you're trying to kill each other in a way. The mind plays a huge role in this now because then the intention behind things is different. It's not lifting a weight. It's not driving your body through some kind of cool movement that looks like kung fu. It's understanding every part of you is in motion and what your intention is and all these other kinds of things. That's why that's a kung fu thing. Anyway, body mind conditioning for high impact sports. I think there might be some people that might benefit from this. Thanks.